know what's crazy? The most powerful military mind in the Pacific, Admiral Philip Davidson, former commander of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, once said something that should have made every geopolitical analyst wake up. He said, it's already too late to stop what the Philippines has started. And here's the thing that'll blow your mind. He wasn't talking about military buildup or economic growth. He was talking about something much deeper, something that even allies like Singapore, Japan, and South Korea are starting to worry about. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type Filipino power in the comments, and I will give you a heart. Today, I'm going to tell you the real story of the quiet revolution happening in the Philippines and why it might just reshape all of Asia. Because what's happening there right now, it's not what anyone expected. And it's going to impact your wallet, your security, and the balance of power for a generation. Before we dive in, you need to understand something about Philip Davidson. This isn't some random pundit throwing around hot takes. The man commanded 375,000 US troops across the Pacific. He went head to head with China's rise for years. When someone like that says it's already too late, that means something big is going down. But what exactly? The Philippines? 7,641 islands, 110 million people, a GDP that's barely a quarter of Indonesia's. Looks pretty ordinary, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. This country sits right in the middle of $5.3 trillion, 0 cents worth of annual trade routes. It's got 65% of its population under 35. That's a demographic goldmine. 12 million overseas workers sending money home, 6% annual growth for the past 5 years. But those are just numbers. What Davidson saw was something else entirely. He saw the spirit. Here's a true story that changed how I see this whole thing. Last August, I had a chance to talk to a fisherman in Palawan. This guy told me Chinese vessels had rammed his boat 3 times. But what struck me wasn't his anger. It was what he said next. Sir, we're not afraid. We just need the world to know the truth. And you know what? They've done exactly that. The year 2016 was the year the Philippines did the most insane thing in modern Asian diplomatic history. China had been claiming 80% of the South China Sea with their so-called 9-dash line, a boundary with zero legal foundation. They were building artificial islands, installing missile systems, and chasing away fishermen. How did other countries react? Singapore said, we're neutral. Malaysia said, we need time. Thailand said, China is an important partner. The Philippines said, we're suing you. And then something miraculous happened. On July 12, 2016, the day China lost completely, the Hague Tribunal declared the 9-dash line legally baseless, a stunning defeat for Beijing. But here's where it gets really crazy. China refused to accept the ruling. They called it a piece of trash. Instead of backing down, they doubled down. Water cannons, ramming incidents, and military-grade lasers aimed at Filipino sailors' eyes became daily occurrences. How did the Philippines respond? They did something nobody expected. They filmed everything. Every collision, every harassment, every water cannon attack, every moment of defiance was recorded, posted on social media, and sent to international press. The result? Within 2 years, global opinion had completely turned against China on the South China Sea issue. From the EU to Japan, from India to Australia, everyone was backing the Philippines. Everyone. I used to think this strategy was pretty basic, but after digging deeper, I realized this was a masterclass in modern warfare, information warfare. It was a David vs. Goliath story, but David wasn't using a slingshot, he was using a smartphone camera. Their strategy was pure, unadulterated transparency, no cover-ups, just raw footage of their sailors being harassed. It was an emotional and raw appeal to the world's sense of justice. They relentlessly persisted, documenting incident after incident, doing it over and over. They allowed the world to share it themselves, making the footage go viral, and most importantly, they never provoked first. It's like a martial artist who absorbs a punch and uses that same force to knock their opponent off balance. But here's a secret that nobody talks about. The Philippines hasn't always been this brave. From 2016 to 2020, they had what you could call their pivot to China period. President Duterte literally said, I will go to China to beg for money. He even threatened to kick the US military out of the Philippines. China invested $24 billion, 0 cents, into the Philippines for their build programs. Manila Metro, bridges, roads everywhere. So what changed? Ferdinand Bong Marcos Jr., yes, the dictator's son, but with a completely different vision. And here's my personal take. Marcos Jr. gets something that many Asian leaders still don't understand. In a multipolar world, you don't need to pick sides. You need to create value. The evidence is everywhere. with the US signing the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, opening 9 new military bases, with China maintained $50 billion plus in annual trade, with Japan a strategic defense partnership, with the EU a GSP plus trade agreement. The Philippines sits at the center, connected to everyone. This isn't hedge betting. This is a masterclass in strategy. But here's what international analysts don't want to admit. The Philippines is winning economically. From 2019 to 2024, the Philippines averaged 6.2% annual growth, compared to ASEAN's 4.1% and the world's 2.8%. It's like a car in the slow lane suddenly accelerating past all the other traffic. But the real engine driving this change is hidden in plain sight. Remittances in 2024 were $38 billion, $200 million, 0 cents. That's bigger than Vietnam's entire foreign direct investment inflow. To put that in perspective, imagine a nation's national budget being 70% funded by money sent home by its own citizens. It's a financial lifeline more stable than Saudi Arabia's oil exports. I have a Filipino friend who's a nurse in Dubai. She sends home $800, 0 cents a month. It doesn't sound like much, but that's an engineer's salary in Manila. Multiply that by 12 million overseas Filipino workers, and you start to see the real decentralized power of the Philippines. And here's what nobody calculated. Each overseas worker is a cultural ambassador. They're not just sending money home, they're sending influence. Filipino nurses are running hospitals in the UK, earning a reputation for skill and compassion. Filipino engineers are designing bridges in the Middle East, showcasing their talent. Filipino teachers are working at international schools worldwide, promoting a global mindset. The result? Filipino English is becoming the Asian standard, a clear, understandable English that connects East and West. It's a form of soft power that has a far greater reach than any government program. If you're finding this deep dive valuable so far, please take a moment to hit that like button. It helps us know we're on the right track and keeps the channel growing. Thank you. Concrete example, February 2024 signed EDCA with the US military, establishing 9 new military bases. This was a clear signal to Beijing. But 1 month later, in March 2024, they signed infrastructure MOUs with China, securing economic investment. In April, they made hardline statements about Scarborough Shoal. In May, they proposed joint development cooperation. This isn't sitting on the fence. This is strategic ambiguity at a masterclass level. It's like playing chess against a grandmaster, where every move serves a dual purpose. The result? The US says the Philippines is our most important ally. China says the Philippines is a traditional friend. Japan says the Philippines is a key strategic partner. The EU says the Philippines is our gateway to ASEAN. Everyone's right. Everyone's happy. It's a diplomatic juggling act that few countries can pull off, and the Philippines is doing it with remarkable poise. But here's something nobody talks about. Singapore is worried. For 40 years, Singapore has been Asia's financial and tech hub. Its political stability, robust legal system, and educated workforce have made it the go-to destination for multinational corporations. But the Philippines has advantages that Singapore simply can't copy. Singapore has 5.9 million people, labor costs of $4,500, 0 cents per month, a tiny domestic market, and English plus 3 other official languages. The Philippines has 110 million people, labor costs of $350, 0 cents per month, the second largest domestic market in ASEAN, and a huge population of native English speakers. The cost of talent arbitrage is massive. It's like comparing a high-end boutique to a massive, bustling supermarket. You can get quality from both, but the scale and efficiency of the supermarket are undeniable. Key case study. Shopee, a massive e-commerce company, is moving its technical headquarters from Singapore to the Philippines. Why? They can find 10,000 top-tier developers in Manila, the costs are 1/3 of Singapore's, and the quality is equivalent. I'm not saying Singapore will collapse, but I believe the monopoly is over. The era of one hub for everything is giving way to specialized hubs. Singapore for finance, Philippines for tech and BPO, Indonesia for manufacturing, Vietnam for supply chain, and the Philippines is winning in tech. They're not just catching up, they're creating a new model of success. And by the way, if you want to stay on top of these world-changing stories, make sure you're subscribed and have the notification bell turned on. But there's an even deeper geopolitical shift, one that has profound moral implications. On February 24th, 2022, the day Russia attacked Ukraine, the world divided. NATO condemned it. China supported Russia. India stayed neutral. Many Asian countries stayed silent. The Philippines, a small island nation thousands of miles away, condemned Russia clearly and voted against Russia at the UN. This made me think a lot. Why would a Southeast Asian country care so much about a conflict in Europe? The answer? Principle. If we let Russia invade Ukraine without responding, tomorrow someone else will invade us, said Teodoro Locsin Jr., the Philippines foreign minister. It was a direct and open challenge to China's own expansionist ambition. And they didn't just talk. They welcomed 200 Ukrainian refugees to Manila, provided rice aid to Ukraine, proposed peace talks at ASEAN, and rejected Russia's annexation referendums. This wasn't about strategic advantage, it was about standing on a universal principle of sovereignty. For the first time in history, an ASEAN country is leading on moral leadership on the international stage, not Singapore with its careful pragmatism, not Indonesia with its strict neutrality, but the Philippines with clear, unwavering principles. But here's the part that China really worries about. Philippines-China trade in 2024, $51,200,000,000, 0 cents. Philippines-US trade in 2024, $27,800,000,000, 0 cents. Looks like China wins, right? Wrong. Let's break down the numbers like a pro. Philippines exports to China were only $8,200,000,000, 0 cents. Mostly raw materials like nickel and copper. It's like selling the bricks to build a house, not the house itself. China's exports to the Philippines were $43 billion, 0 cents, a flood of manufactured goods. With the US, the Philippines exports were high-value services and electronics at $15,600,000,000, 0 cents. US exports to the Philippines were technology and machinery. With China, the Philippines is a raw material supplier. With the US, the Philippines is a technology partner. The trend is changing. From 2022 to 2024, China trade declined 3% annually, while US trade grew 12% annually. Japan trade grew 18%, and Korea trade grew 25%. This isn't just a coincidence. This is strategic decoupling. Samsung moved production lines from China to Laguna. Intel opened an R&D center in Makati. Google placed a data center in Cavite. The Philippines is positioning itself as a credible, stable, and cost-efficient alternative to China for tech companies, and it's working. They are becoming the new factory and intellectual powerhouse of Asia, but with the added bonus of shared democratic values. But the most important factor Admiral Philip Davidson saw wasn't government or economics, it was the people. The Philippines has a demographic profile that is the envy of the developed world, a median age of 25.7 years compared to Singapore's 42.2. A staggering 65% of the population is under 35. 78% are digital natives. They have the highest college education rate in ASEAN. The average Filipino spends 4.5 hours daily on social media. 94% use smartphones, 67% have online side hustles, 89% follow international news. What does this mean? It means a new generation is rising. A generation that has grown up with access to global information and a desire to build their own future. We don't want to be OFWs, Maria, a 22-year-old startup founder told me. We want to build the Philippines. Jose, a 24-year-old software engineer, said, "My parents' generation left, our generation stays and fights." The brain drain that plagued the country for decades is reversing. I met a guy named Miguel, 26, the founder of a fintech startup. He turned down a $120,000, 0 cents per year offer from Singapore to stay in Manila for $30,000, 0 cents. Why? In Singapore, I'm just another employee, he said. In Manila, I'm building the future. This isn't just a trend, it's a monumental shift in national identity. In 2019, 78% of Filipino graduates wanted to immigrate. In 2024, only 52% want to leave. Brain drain has become brain retention, heading toward a brain gain. Now, we come back to the original question. What is Admiral Philip Davidson afraid of? He's not afraid of the Philippines becoming China's ally. He's afraid of the Philippines becoming ASEAN's leader, creating a new pro-democratic, pro-US bloc. Why? Scenario 1. A Philippines-led ASEAN, tougher on China, closer to the US. This would influence Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam, countries that are currently on the fence. Scenario 2, a China-influenced ASEAN, soft diplomacy with China, gradually distancing from the US, accepting Chinese hegemony. Currently, Indonesia is neutral, meaning China. Thailand is China-friendly. Malaysia is pragmatic. Singapore is US-leaning but careful. Vietnam is anti-China but weak. The Philippines is openly pro-US. If the Philippine success story continues, Vietnam will follow suit. Indonesia will reconsider. Malaysia might change. Result, ASEAN tilts toward the US. And I think Admiral Davidson was right, but not for military reasons, for economic reasons. The Philippines is proving that you can succeed without depending on China. That's an extremely dangerous message for Beijing, a message that can't be stopped by a water cannon or a military exercise. Before we get into the final segment, if you appreciate this kind of in-depth analysis, please make sure you're subscribed. We've got more stories like this on the way that you won't want to miss. But I wouldn't be fair if I only talked about the success story. The Philippines faces real risks. Corruption is a persistent challenge. The Corruption Perception Index of 2024 ranks the Philippines 115 out of 180. Even though Marcos Jr. has a clear vision, the shadow of the dictator remains, and many Filipinos still doubt transparency. The Philippines is also the country most affected by climate change. In 2024 alone, they faced 8 typhoons causing $2 billion, $100 million, 0 cents in damage, and 847 deaths. Economically, that's a negative 0.8% of GDP annually. It's a constant, painful headwind. The wealth gap is another major issue. The Gini coefficient is high at 0.427, showing that the top 1% holds 17% of the wealth, while the bottom 50% has only 14%. It's a ticking time bomb of social instability. And of course, China continues to increase pressure. Military exercises near the Philippines are becoming more frequent. Economic coercion, like blocking banana imports, is a constant threat. Disinformation campaigns are designed to sow political chaos from within. The big question, is the Philippine model sustainable? I believe yes, but with conditions. They must maintain transparency, address inequality, build climate resilience, and keep the US-China balance. This isn't a guaranteed victory, it's a high-stakes bet on the future. So what will the Philippines look like in the next 5 years? I have 3 scenarios. Best case, Asian Tiger 2.0, 7% annual GDP growth, becoming a top 3 ASEAN economy and Asia's tech hub. A new economic powerhouse rising in the East. Most likely, steady growth of 5-6% annually, maintaining its current trajectory as a regional middle power with successful diversification. It's a slow and steady climb, but one that is fundamentally changing the nation. Worst case, stagnation, internal political crisis, and a return to dependency where Chinese economic pressure works and the brain drain returns. I believe in scenario 2, steady growth with elements of scenario 1. Why? The demographic dividend has 20 years left to peak. The digital infrastructure foundation is there, geopolitical positioning is optimally timed, and there's leadership stability. But there are 2 wild cards. Trump 2.0, if US foreign policy changes drastically and becomes unpredictable, and a China economic crisis, if their economy implodes and creates a power vacuum. Both could either derail the Philippines' progress or accelerate it. And now the question I know you're thinking, what can America learn from the Philippines model? Here's what's fascinating. The Philippines is doing something the US has struggled with, maintaining influence without overwhelming dominance. 3 lessons for American foreign policy. Sometimes the best allies are the ones who choose you, not the ones you pressure. The Philippines chose to pivot back to the US because of Chinese aggression, not American threats. It was a partnership based on shared threat and mutual respect, not one of patron and client. Transparency wins over propaganda in the information age. The Philippines' simple strategy of filming everything beat China's sophisticated narrative warfare. In an age of deepfakes and disinformation, a simple, raw truth can be the most powerful weapon. Economic partnerships work better than economic dependence. The Philippines diversified away from China, not because America demanded it, but because it made economic sense. This is a model for true long-term alliances. What the Philippines does that America sometimes struggles with. They let their actions speak first, then explain. They build coalitions through shared experience, not just shared interests. They use soft power before hard power, building cultural bridges before military alliances. They make their case to the world, not just to governments. What America does that the Philippines can't: provide security guarantees, offer massive economic packages, project power globally, and set international standards. The conclusion: America and the Philippines complement each other perfectly. American power with Filipino agility. If you've been watching this long, it's clear you're invested in understanding the New World Order. So if you haven't yet, smash that like button and subscribe for more insights just like this. Now we finally understand why Admiral Philip Davidson said it's already too late to stop what the Philippines has started. He wasn't talking about military buildup, he wasn't talking about economic growth, he was talking about momentum. What the Philippines has started is 1. Normalizing the challenge to China. Other countries see it's possible. 2. Proof that middle powers can thrive without completely choosing sides. 3. Democratic resilience in Asia at a time when authoritarianism is rising. And 4. A new model of development, services plus diaspora plus strategic positioning. Indonesia is taking a harder line with China over the Natuna Islands. Vietnam is more vocal about the South China Sea. Malaysia is reviewing Chinese projects. Thailand is playing a balancing act. The Philippines effect is real, and I think this is what makes Davidson nervous. Not because he wants the Philippines to be weak, but because he knows once this process starts, it's irreversible. Think about it. Once people taste freedom of speech about China, it's hard to go back. Once an economy diversifies away from China, it's hard to reconcentrate. Once international support solidifies, it's hard to isolate. Once a young generation gets confident, it's hard to suppress. It's already too late means the genie is out of the bottle. So there you have it, the story of the Philippines' transformation from silent ally to potential Asian tiger. This story matters to us all because it shows that courage, strategy, and a little transparency can change the world. It shows us that even a small country can defy the odds and prove that you can stand up to a bully and win. It's a message of empowerment for every person who has ever felt powerless. The Philippines didn't just start something, they started to prove something. And as Admiral Philip Davidson said, it's already too late to stop. If you found this valuable, hit that like button to support the channel and subscribe so you don't miss new videos, and share this with anyone interested in geopolitics. Next week, I'm analyzing why Singapore is worried about the Philippines' rise. A completely different angle on this story. Thanks for watching.